Our first story begins at this unassuming apartment building at 120 North Sweetser in West Hollywood. Less than 7 miles from the high-rent mansions and fancy shopping districts of Beverly Hills, West Hollywood offers much more affordable housing and a simpler lifestyle. This was the intermediate home of promising young actress Rebecca Schaeffer, who had planned to rent here only long enough to move into a house of her own. A featured role in the weekly TV sitcom My Sister Sam and a modeling career had opened the door to a bright future for the 21-year-old. But her trip to stardom is cut short at this very doorstep.
I heard the 2 shots in rapid succession.
Next-door neighbor Ken Newell rushes to investigate the sound of gunshots.
And when I got here, I saw that Miss Schaeffer's body was lying in the doorway, propping this door open. And there was no pulse, so her body was in the way here, and the door was cruelly pressing on it.
July 18th, 1989. Rebecca Schaeffer is pronounced dead at 10:15 in the morning. Moments later, her father hears the news from a close friend.
I ran out of there screaming because the pain was overwhelming.
As word of the murder of a celebrity hits the news stations, LAPD homicide detective Frank Bolin is assigned the case. 1 a.m., July 19th, 1989. Bolin is the last detective to call it quits for the day.
I was locking up the office, and the phone was ringing, and I was kind of looking at the phone and looking at the door, and I said, well, one more call. So I picked it up and I answered it.
The call is from a Tennessee state trooper who thinks he may have information about the killer.
That was the first time I heard Robert Bardo, and that information came from a neighbor of his who turned out to be the sister of Robert Bardo.
A 19-year-old unemployed janitor had recently called his sister and told her, "I have an obsession with the unattainable, and I have to eliminate what I cannot obtain." Robert John Bardo is arrested in his hometown of Tucson, Arizona, and turned over to the Los Angeles Police Department. With a suspect in custody, Deputy District Attorney Marcia Clark is brought in to prosecute what is certain to be a high-profile case.
It's always more complicated when there's a celebrity involved in an investigation, in any case, particularly when it's as severe as a murder case, because the news media jumps all over it, and one of the biggest problems, nightmares, that the police have to face is getting to the witnesses before the news media does.
As the trial date draws closer, investigators begin to piece together the details surrounding both suspect and victim. 2 people who'd come to Hollywood for very different reasons. One, to follow her dream of celebrity, and the other, to destroy what he could never have. One of Prosecutor Clark's first tasks is to meet Rebecca's parents.
She was their only child. When I first met them in the police station, I think they were still in shock a little bit.
I saw Rebecca in the morgue there and felt tremendous anger, rage, grief, depression. I mean, the words are totally inadequate.
Rebecca Schaeffer's life had begun in Portland, Oregon, in many ways as far away from the glittering lights of Hollywood as you can get.
She had a lot of warmth and just energy of life. I mean, that was just there, and that was a part of her.
Benson Schaeffer, a clinical child psychologist, says Rebecca Lucille was the joy of his life from the moment she was born.
From the time she was a very young child, she was a very compassionate and sharing person.
Her family assumes their bright, talkative daughter would grow up to become a lawyer or a scientist. But from the time she appears in a 6th grade school play, it's evident where her heart is leading her.
When she got into high school, it became clearer because she began to do things that were working in that direction: modeling, acting, voice lessons, singing, learning how to play guitar.
A modeling career quickly leads to acting roles and a move to Hollywood, where her path would cross that of Robert Bardo, described by people who knew him as a loner whose hobby of writing fan letters to his favorite celebrities seemed harmless enough.
He was nervous and scared and confused.
Public defender Stephen Galindo is assigned to represent Bardo, who has been charged with first-degree murder.
There was a lot of publicity with the cameras just hitting him. He seemed a little overwhelmed by all of the attention and publicity.
The investigation shows that Bardo had written 40 fan letters to Rebecca.
Normally that would be okay, but she responded and wrote him a letter back saying, "Thank you very much for the letter and your kind words," and that apparently was the trigger.
He continued to write letters, and then his obsessive, I don't want to call it love, it's not anything like love, but his obsessive attachment to her turned ugly.
Bardo makes 3 trips by bus from Arizona to California, trying to meet Rebecca Schaeffer. He even shows up at the Warner Brothers Ranch Studios, where she taped her TV series. Bardo is armed with a bouquet of flowers and a stuffed bear for Rebecca, but security sends him away.
We didn't know a lot about stalkers back then. I think it was seen as kind of a harmless fan situation.
On another visit, he brings a knife to Hollywood, but is again unable to find her.
I believe that these stalkers ultimately turn violent probably most of the time, primarily because what they want is to attach themselves and become famous by virtue of their attachment to the celebrity. How can they attach? Only through a violent crime.
In the summer of 1989, Bardo comes to Los Angeles once more. This time, he brings a handgun.
He was informed by his brother that .357 is a pretty powerful gun. So he had his brother buy a round that's called a hydroshock round, and it explodes on impact.
With the help of a private investigator, Bardo now knows exactly where to find Schaeffer.
The investigator went to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles in California, and paid a clerk a very small amount of money, and that clerk gave him all of the information on her driver's license, which was including where she lived at the time.
Testimony given during the trial reveals exactly what happened. 6:04 a.m., July 18th, 1989. John Bardo arrives at 120 North Sweetser. He watches for 3 hours until he builds enough nerve to push the buzzer with the name Schaeffer.
I believe he did not expect her to come straight to the door. She lived in an apartment building, and when he saw her coming to the door, I think it took him by surprise. And he couldn't prepare himself. He had the gun on him, but he couldn't prepare himself in time to kill her. So he went to a diner, ate something, went into the bathroom, practiced a little bit, and this time went to the door prepared.
For the second time within an hour, Rebecca comes to the front door.
She was in a hurry, she was coming down, her hair was wet, as he explains it, and she had this annoyed look on her face, because obviously she was bothered by that. And because of that encounter, when she opened the door and said, "Hey, what do you want? Why are you here? Why are you bothering me?" That type of thing, he became very upset.
During the trial, Rebecca's family has to relive the painful moments of her murder.
When I left the trial every day, I felt like I'd been beaten about the head and neck. It was just very difficult.
The defense contends Bardo does not have the mental capacity to commit a premeditated ambush murder.
The number one strategy was avoid the death penalty, first and foremost.
There is no jury for this case because all sides agreed to trial by judge in exchange for not seeking the death penalty. After a 3.5-week trial, The Schaeffer family and the attorneys wait for the judge's verdict. Guilty. Life without the possibility of parole. Marcia Clark, who is now a private attorney and TV celebrity herself, says she'll never forget hearing the judge's sentence that day.
When he found the defendant guilty with special circumstances, I was relieved because I did believe that Bardo would go out and do it again if ever paroled.
Everyone involved in this Hollywood crime scene has been touched by it. The Schaeffer family continues to grieve.
It was extremely hard for my wife, extremely hard. I would say she cried for a year.
As a result of this case, the law has been changed so that personal information such as a home address is no longer available from the Department of Motor Vehicles at any price. Also, a permanent scholarship fund named the Rebecca Schaeffer Memorial Scholarship in Acting has been set up at the UCLA Department of Theater. In the end, it had been Rebecca Schaeffer's trusting, friendly nature that opened the door to her downfall.
She was kind enough to understand that people are fans and they want to feel like they can reach out and touch you, and she was, I think, understanding of that, unfortunately.
Two very different people who come to Hollywood. As it turns out, neither stayed here. Robert Bardo lives in the California Mule Creek prison, where he will spend the rest of his life without the possibility of parole. Rebecca Schaeffer's body rests in her hometown of Portland, Oregon, where her gravestone reads, "Beloved daughter and courageous spirit."
I miss very much the opportunity of watching her grow older. And I miss hugging her and smelling her hair, and I miss everything about her.